This video is to go over the brainstem. Now, here is the brainstem model, and we're also going to talk about the thalamus and the hypothalamus. So we have the external view, and then we have the mid-sagittal view. I will show you an anterior and posterior view as well. So this right here is actually the insula. The diencephalon, which the thalamus here is part of in the hypothalamus, you can't really see from this view. We have the midbrain here, and this is the optic nerve coming off, and we have the pituitary hanging down. So this is the midbrain. So on this side, this would be the midbrain. This is the nice pons. This is the nice pons. And then we have the medulla oblongata. So medulla oblongata. Now here's the pituitary. It's hanging out right here. There's the infundibulum, which attaches it to the diencephalon, or more specifically, the hypothalamus. So this is the hypothalamus right here. This is the thalamus, and then the epithalamus is back here. This structure right here is the pineal gland, and then the habengular nuclei is not shown on here. Another important structure, it's always M on all the models, they do it to be cute, that's the mammillary body. That is one of the ways into the limbic system. This right here is the fornix. So looking on the external view, we have right there the olivary nuclei, and I picked this one because I actually color it does look like an olive. So see, there's the olivary nuclei hiding between some of the cranial nerves. So this is the anterior view. So again, this would be the insular lobe. This is part of the thalamus, and this is white matter that separates the thalamus or the diencephalon from the insula. And this is called the corona radiata. We have the optic nerve coming off, and this junction between the two is the optic chiasm. This is the pituitary gland. Here is the pons. Then there's the medulla oblongata, and you can see the cranial nerves coming off of it. So here is the view of it with one of the ventricle system attached. And I want to show that to you because I missed a couple of structures. So these are the lateral ventricles there in the cerebrum. This is the third ventricle. This is overlaying the thalamus, and there's a little tiny gap right there for the interthalamic adhesion to come through. That is a gray matter track connecting the left side to the right side. Then we have the cerebral aqueduct going down to the fourth ventricle. Down here, so cerebral aqueduct down to the fourth ventricle, which is roughly behind the pons. So if we now look at that model, we have the cerebral aqueduct right there. We have the fourth ventricle right there. And then there's the interthalamic adhesion. That's why there's that hole in the third ventricle. Remember, the third ventricle is covering the midline of the thalamus. It's actually separating the left and the right thalamic lobes. So on this model, where we have it cut in half, here's the thalamus. That's the interthalamic adhesion. That's where that gap was in the third ventricle. And this is supposed to be the choroid plexus. That is where the ependymal cells are, and it makes the cerebral spinal fluid. You could actually see the lateral choroid plexus hiding on the top. So here's another model. We'll actually look at this model in a different lab. But we can see you have the midbrain right there, mesencephalon. There's the mammillary bodies, there's the pons, there's the brainstem. Finally, we come to the posterior view. So again, this is the insular lobe right there. This is the lateral ventricle in the cerebrum, hemispheres. That red thing's called the basal ganglia, or the basal nuclei. It is separated, it's nuclei in the white matter that's between the thalamus and the insular lobe. And what we could see in the posterior view is there's part of the diencephalon, there's part of it. This would be the epithalamus right there, actually. And we have four bodies right there. 1, 2, 3, 4. And this is the midbrain or mesencephalon. These are called the corpora quadrigemina, and they're also important nuclei that we'll talk about in lecture. So we have the lateral ventricles. You can't see the third ventricle in here. We have the cerebral aqueduct going down the posterior part of the mesencephalon, and this is the fourth ventricle with its lateral and medial apertures. Lastly, and it's not clear in the models, there are these little feet called cerebral pedicles. There's one coming off the mesencephalon, called the superior, one coming off the pons, called the middle, one coming off of the medulla oblongata, called the inferior. And these are white matter tracks connecting the brainstem with the cerebellum right here. And again, you can sort of see it there. It's not clear on any of them. I just went through all my brain models. I couldn't find it clear on any of them. So what you're going to be doing, you're going to be going to this page. It's the same model I showed you. It might be reversed into the other direction, and you are going to try to find those structures. And again, like the other ones, the regions are A, B, C, D, E, F, G. The structures are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.